Hello and welcome to Frank Fridays. My name is Karline Moeller and I'm the founder of Art Frankly. I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, Ellie Hayworth, who started Hayworth, an art consultancy committed to promoting intrepid ideas at the intersection of art and design. And today we are chatting with Claire Breukel, who is the Executive Director of ProjectArt, an organization that empowers youth, emerging artists, and communities through partnerships with public libraries from coast to coast. Claire has had a riveting career path, so I'll let Ellie get this interview started.
Amazing. Thank you, Carlina and Claire. This is going to be a lot of fun today, so thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to speak to you today.
Yeah. So Claire, maybe we can just start by speaking about kind of in an overview form, if you will, kind of your career in the arts. What brought you to art in the first place?
So that's a great question. So actually I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa, and a gentleman who actually lived next door to me had a studio space, and he would paint. And as a kid, I used to sneak into his studio and watch him paint. And so it was the first time I realized that an art piece could transform the way we think. And I used to stare at his work constantly. And I think something in that experience really moved me to understand that visuals have a way to speak to you beyond just the day to day. And so when I was growing up, I had a speech. I struggled with speech, and the one way I could communicate was through drawing, was through art. And I was very lucky. I had access to art classes.
Yes,
so I was able to actually develop that skill. And then growing up, I just eventually realized that was what I wanted to do. And so I studied art at the University of Cape Town and fell into curating. And eventually one thing led to the next, and I was invited to Miami by the Rubells. And I came in and did their curatorial internship. And then literally, I have to say, I've had the luckiest life. I've had one opportunity after the next, and I've traveled, I've gotten to experience amazing things. And I think at some point in my career, I realized it was time to give back a little bit and stop focusing on trying to get to the next step and focus on new things. So when I received the opportunity to work with this program, I grabbed it with both hands. It's not only a program that is supportive of the community around the US, providing kids with art with access to art, it's also very personal for me because I did myself grow as a human being from being able to make. And I feel like arts education in the US is at a point where it needs a dire amount of help.
Yeah, I love that. I don't think I ever quite realized truly how personal art was to you, but I appreciate it. It all actually kind of makes perfect sense now, seeing how it's come full circle.
Full circle. It really does feel that way, which is strange. Yeah,
I love that.
And I don't think I knew it would, and so it came out in the most beautiful way, and I'm really enjoying it. Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited, and we'll certainly speak a little bit more about ProjectArt in just a moment. But
sure.
We've been familiar through kind of the art network for many years, and I think we became a bit more familiar now that I'm back in Miami. And so, you did a lot of really meaningful work bringing curatorial projects, site-specific installations, and actually even facilitating some of the pop-ups that we all saw over the past, I would say certainly 2 to 3 years, but last year was very meaningful for me because the art world was having a very hard time in New York with the shuttering of the pandemic complications. So I'm curious, maybe you can speak a little bit about your vision for the programming, specifically in the Miami Design District, but any other projects you want to speak to. I'd love to hear about your approach to curating some of the work.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So as you said, last year was an incredibly tough year. The world, quote unquote, shut down, but nobody stopped making art. And what I realized was that the local community in Miami, so many people had shows that just didn't happen. So I had an unprecedented opportunity to invite people who ordinarily might not consider a show here to do a show. So really it was, in a way, a playground. I had space, I had money, and I had creativity. So I endeavored to invite artists in the Miami community who I thought could contribute to a social and more civic voice. And so I was able to work with For Freedoms. Grella Orihuela did an incredible show where she invited a furniture designer, a painter, to kind of experiment in the space. Tom Skakluna did a sound piece that was mixed with like a billboard. Sorry, he didn't do a sound piece. He did a billboard piece that kind of overtook the entire space. Yeah. So I really had the opportunity to do something that was very experimental and focus only on artists from Miami, which was incredibly rewarding and fun.
Yeah, I remember it so fondly. Antonia Wright's window wrappings.
100%.
At the storefront spaces that were empty. And I just remember it was kind of a very radical choice in some parts because it was about smashing of windows, and it had a lot to do with the social justice protests that we were seeing across the country last year. Yeah. But she was bringing it in a very high art way. So I commend you. I think the programming was really strong. And as someone who was looking to see art on the streets last year when we were otherwise kind of socially distanced, it was very special.
It was really about providing a space for people to voice what had to be voiced. I think the protests were, in my personal opinion, had to happen and needed to be strongly supported. But I think there's always a way to talk about those things in a manner that's very smart and sophisticated and in a way that's not going to close doors. So my interest was really in kind of providing a platform for people to have free speech, and I was lucky in that almost everything got said yes to. So great.
I love that. Well, I'm very excited also to see kind of the capacity of the new role. Are there any? I mean, Claire, maybe you can give us a brief synopsis of what ProjectArt does and what we can come to expect of you in the new role.
Thank you. So ProjectArt is in 9 cities across America: Pittsburgh, Detroit, Cleveland, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami. I know I'm forgetting a few, New Orleans. And we basically have directors who work on the ground and support art programs. We provide art education for children across America free of charge. And these are mostly to kids in the community who don't have arts learning at schools. This year was unprecedented because most of our classes went online. So our program actually had to shift and change. But what we were able to do was maintain a steady flow of programs and actually employ people in the creative community to teach as well. So that's a part, I think, of our program a lot of people not familiar with, is that we actually employ the creative community and we teach them how to teach, so that following our residency, they can go out and get a job and teach.
I love that.
So that's been a really rewarding part of the program. We're hoping to go back in person predominantly next year. Cleveland is back, and we're hoping to kind of segue back a few of our spaces next year. But basically, it's really a win-win. It's an opportunity for parents to entertain their kids. I think in a year where they were looking for things for their kids to do that were worthwhile, we provided the online program, and we're actually able to reach a lot of kids who weren't able to go to our spaces for art programs. So I think moving forward, we're probably going to be adopting a hybrid program of doing both online and on site. So we learned a lot, which was great.
That's really exciting. Well, we're certainly going to stay tuned. I know it's early in your directorship, but I certainly will keep my eyes peeled on what's to come.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very exciting. So you should be quite proud.
And I have to say, my board of directors is absolutely phenomenal. So I can't wait to work with them. They're from around the US and incredibly supportive. So it's definitely going to be an opportunity for me to learn from them as well, which I'm excited about.
I love that. Yeah. Well, Claire, we like to kind of conclude these interviews with some professional practice questions.
Okay.
I'm curious to know if you were to give kind of one word of advice or a phrase of advice to an incoming aspiring arts professional, what would it be?
Yeah. That's a great question. So I've been thinking a lot about this idea of kind of steps, like the steps you're supposed to take. And I do feel like the benchmarks have changed so much, especially over the last few years. So I think, I know this is going to sound like incredibly twee and sweet, but be yourself, do what feels right to you, and trust your gut more than anything. Because I feel like the art world at the moment is going through a change in and of itself. It's in flux. So what a great opportunity to carve a path for yourself by defining who you are and what you want to do, as opposed to listening to the steps that you're supposed to take. Because I just don't think that is where we're going to be moving, which is exciting. It's providing a lot of opportunities.
I have to say, I think that advice applies to me. And, you know, we all could, I think, take a healthy dose of just saying, follow your heart, and rest assured that, you know, the art, I do believe the art world is quite in flux. And so I see a lot of opportunity out of it. But
well, look at what you've been able to do. I mean, you've really created a space for yourself, and you're doing incredible things as well. So you've got an amazing platform.
Well, you're very sweet. I quite appreciate that. But it certainly takes a healthy dose of confidence and some faith in the fact that your instinct is guiding you in the right direction.
I hope so.
So yeah, no, I think that's a great piece of advice. I'd also love to know, is there kind of one takeaway or experience from your career path that you felt was very formative, if you will, or a milestone that you'd like to celebrate?
Would you mind if I share two instead of just one?
Of course.
So the program that I worked on in El Salvador, called Yes, I helped found with private collectors in Miami, Mario Cader-Frech and Robert Wennett. And they were absolutely incredible, incredibly supportive. And they started a foundation program that was looking at further establishing contemporary artists in El Salvador. And I think I learned so much from the creatives there. The artist community in El Salvador is, for the most part, looked down on for some reason, and some of the creatives I met there had been working for 30 years, 40 years, doing incredible work. And I learned so much on thinking about how to navigate the art world from the perspective of somebody who is living in a place like El Salvador that has very little support for the arts. So that was an incredible learning curve for me. And then the other one would be the Red auction that I worked on in 2013. Jony, Ive and Marc Newson curated an incredible design auction that happened in New York. And then again, I worked on the Red auction in Miami in 2018 with Theaster Gates and David Adjaye. And both of those experiences really kind of taught me that you've got to think big, you've got to go for it. I worked with Sheila Roche, who is from Red, who is a genius. And we were able to raise an incredible amount of money for an incredible cause. So I think I was incredibly proud of having worked on that.
Oh, yes. No, and those sound like some pretty fantastic teams to have been a part of, and collaborators to be exchanging ideas with. So I think that's wonderful. Well, Claire, we will kind of end our interview on one last final note. Is there one thing, I keep asking everyone what we're excited to see before the end of the year, but the end of the year seems to be creeping upon us. Is there anything you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so I've created a show with the Craig Robbins art collection that's going to be up in the Miami Design District through December. So we have a very exciting exhibition up, both of new work and a legacy artist who I'm not going to tell you who it is, so that you come and see the show. It's in Miami, and it'll be up during the fair and throughout the year. So Craig Robbins collection art show I'm very excited about.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that. I certainly will be boots on the ground, and I'll definitely go and see that exhibition. But this has just been really lovely. I very much enjoyed chatting with you, Claire, and I'm excited to see where things continue to progress for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.